The galaxy had fallen into silence. Worlds that once burned bright with cities and voices were now empty shadows. Fleets that once patrolled the stars had vanished without a signal, without a single trace of battle. Across hundreds of star systems, no one had answers. Every race searched for reasons, every council argued for solutions, but nothing explained the darkness spreading from one corner of the galaxy to the next. It was as if some ancient force had returned, something older than all the empires now trembling in fear. On the great council station, built in orbit around a dying sun, leaders of many alien species gathered. Their voices echoed in the high chamber, filled with fear and desperation. Some wanted to flee deeper into unexplored space, others demanded war, but none had a plan. The silence from their missing fleets grew heavier each day. Their enemies were not like anything they had faced before. No ship returned to give reports. No signal carried information. Only silence. One voice rose above the rest. A scholar from a forgotten world spoke of legends hidden in ruins, stories of a war that had once shaken the stars before any of their species had risen to power. The council mocked him at first, but desperation forced them to listen. He told them of cryo chambers buried deep in an ancient station, a station so old that its makers were unknown. He spoke of beings placed there in slumber, waiting for a time when the galaxy would need them. Curiosity and fear spread across the chamber. Many dismissed the story as myth, but the council was desperate. They ordered a search. A fleet was sent to the far edges of known space, to a station orbiting a lifeless planet. The station had no light, no power, no signal. Its metal was scarred by time and meteor strikes, yet it still floated in the void as if waiting. When the explorers entered, they found dust and silence, but deeper inside were rows of pods. Hundreds of them lined the walls, sealed tight, untouched by time. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, symbols that no translator could fully read. Yet one word appeared again and again, burned into the walls, etched into the consoles, scratched into the very steel as if to be remembered forever. The word was humans. The council had never heard it before. None of their libraries, none of their vast knowledge contained even a whisper of this name. It was as if history itself had erased them. The discovery split the council into chaos. Some shouted that opening the pods would invite disaster. If these beings were locked away, then perhaps there was a reason. Others argued that answers might lie within, that maybe these forgotten beings knew what the spreading darkness truly was. The debate raged for days until the silence of the galaxy forced a decision. Worlds continued to fall. Colonies went dark. Time was running out. The council agreed. The pods would be opened. The explorers returned to the station. Their ships docked and their lights cut through the endless black. The air inside was cold and heavy. Machines hummed as power was restored for the first time in centuries. Dust rose from the floor like a ghost of forgotten ages. The pods glowed faintly, warning lights flashing as if waking from a long dream. The explorers stood in silence, fear tightening their chests. A hiss filled the air. Steam burst from the first pod. A figure lay inside, pale and still. The glass lifted slowly. The being opened its eyes. They were not like alien eyes. There was no glow, no shifting color, no strange shape. They were human eyes, sharp and deep, filled with something none of the council had seen before. The human sat up, weak but alive, breathing heavy. His gaze swept across the strange faces staring at him. The explorers froze, unsure if they should speak, unsure if they had awakened salvation or doom. The human's lips parted, and with a hoarse but steady voice he asked only one question. How long? The explorers did not know how to answer. They spoke of the galaxy's chaos, of the silence spreading across worlds. They told him centuries had passed, maybe more, since his kind had been seen. The human closed his eyes, breathing slow, as if the weight of the truth was not a surprise but an old memory returning. The others began to stir. More pods opened, releasing mist into the chamber. Men and women stepped out, fragile from sleep but standing tall. They looked at each other, then at the aliens, and then at the void beyond the station walls. Not one of them seemed afraid. Among them was a woman with dark eyes who studied the aliens carefully. She spoke softly, but her words carried through the chamber. It has begun again. The explorers felt their skin crawl at the sound of her voice. They did not understand the meaning, but the weight in her tone told them she did. Something had returned. Something only they knew. The humans were awake. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy would learn the truth of what haunted the stars. The cryo chamber was heavy with mist. Cold air swirled across the floor as more pods opened one by one. Figures stepped out, weak but steady, their eyes scanning the strange station around them. The aliens who had come to awaken them stood frozen in place, afraid to move, afraid even to speak. They had never seen beings like this before. The humans looked ordinary at first, no horns, no glowing skin, no wings, no scales. Compared to the many races of the galaxy, they seemed simple. Yet there was something in their presence that unsettled everyone in the room. It was not power, not weapons, but the way they carried themselves, as if they already understood more than anyone else. The first human, the man who had asked how long, finally stood on shaky legs. His body trembled, but his eyes were firm. He looked at the group of aliens and studied each face as though he could read their thoughts. He spoke slowly, his voice still rough from centuries of silence. "Tell me," he said, "what hunts your stars?" The alien leader, a tall figure with silver skin, tried to explain. He spoke of the fleets that vanished without a trace. He described the worlds that had gone silent, their cities turned cold and empty. He told them how no weapon, no shield, no technology had been able to fight the darkness. Ships disappeared in seconds. Planets died in hours. No one had ever returned to tell them why. The humans listened in silence. They did not ask questions. They only exchanged glances with each other, short and knowing, as if they had already guessed the truth. The silence in the chamber grew heavy, until the woman with dark eyes stepped forward. "It is the same," she whispered. "The cycle has begun again." The aliens stared at her, confused. They demanded to know what she meant. What cycle? What darkness? Why did she speak as if she already knew? The woman only shook her head. The leader of the explorers grew angry. He shouted that the council had taken a great risk in waking them. He demanded answers. Who were they? Why were they sleeping here? What were they hiding? The first man stepped forward and placed a hand on the console of the pod he had just left. His fingers brushed over the old metal, and he closed his eyes for a moment. Then he looked directly at the alien leader. "We are the ones who fought it before," he said. "Long before your kind reached the stars. Long before your empires were born. We faced the same enemy you face now." The aliens fell silent. Some refused to believe him. How could that be possible? Their historians had no record of such a war. No evidence existed that these beings had ever walked the galaxy. The humans, however, showed no doubt. Another man, younger in face but with eyes just as sharp, spoke. "You think the darkness is new. It is not. It comes, it feeds, it grows stronger, and then it disappears until the galaxy forgets. That is the cycle. That is why we were put here." The aliens shifted uneasily. None of this made sense, yet deep inside, something about the humans' words felt true. The fear that had gripped the galaxy suddenly had a name, even if they did not yet understand it. The explorers tried to ask more, but the humans did not answer directly. They only spoke in fragments, hints of a war too great to describe, memories that seemed to weigh on their hearts. They talked of sacrifices, of battles fought in silence, of entire civilizations erased before anyone could record their names. One alien dared to ask the question no one wanted to speak aloud. "Did you win?" The humans grew quiet. Their eyes turned cold, not with anger but with memory. The first man finally gave the answer. "No. We survived. That was all." The chamber fell into silence again. The aliens looked at each other, their hope fading. If these beings, who seemed stronger than any they had seen before, could not defeat the darkness, then what chance did anyone else have? But then the woman with dark eyes spoke once more. "Survival was not enough," she said. "That is why we slept. We did not wait to live again. We waited to finish what was unfinished." Her words carried a weight that none of the aliens could ignore. The humans had not been trapped in the pods. They had chosen it. They had hidden themselves, waiting for the day when the enemy returned. The explorers realized then that awakening the humans had not simply brought back survivors. They had brought back soldiers. Soldiers from a war the galaxy had already forgotten. Soldiers who carried secrets none of them understood. The humans looked weak in body, but their eyes burned with purpose. Even in their silence, they gave the sense that they were already planning, already remembering strategies, already preparing for a war that had never truly ended. The aliens stood in awe and fear. They had wanted answers, but the truth that now stood before them was more dangerous than they imagined. The humans knew what hunted the stars. And the way they looked at the void through the station windows made it clear. They were not surprised. They had been waiting for this. The council chamber was filled with unease. Messages from the explorers had reached them, telling of the strange beings that had awoken from the cryopods. The leaders of the galaxy argued again, but this time their voices carried fear of something new. These beings called themselves humans. They spoke of an old enemy, a darkness that was not new but returning. Some of the council demanded that the humans be destroyed before they could cause trouble. Others argued that the galaxy had no choice but to listen to them. The fleets were gone. The colonies were silent. No answers had come from anyone else. The humans were brought before the council. They walked slowly into the chamber, their steps still weak but their eyes calm and steady. Unlike the other races, who displayed fear or anger in their voices, the humans said nothing at first. They stood in silence, studying the vast chamber, the lights, and the many alien faces staring down at them. The silence stretched so long that even the loudest council members began to grow uncomfortable. Finally, the first man spoke. His voice carried not power but weight. "You wanted answers," he said. "You wanted to know what hunts your stars. We will tell you." The chamber grew quiet. Every leader leaned forward. The humans began to speak, not in one voice, but each adding fragments, pieces of a history the galaxy had forgotten. Long ago, before the rise of the current empires, before the council even existed, there had been another age. In that age, humanity had spread among the stars. They were explorers, warriors, builders. They found countless worlds, met countless species, and thrived across the galaxy. But with their rise came the enemy. A shadow that moved without form, consuming everything it touched. Ships vanished. Worlds died. Armies broke. Humanity had fought it longer than any other. The woman with dark eyes told of battles that lasted years without pause. The younger man spoke of fleets so vast they covered entire systems, only to be erased in silence. Another described weapons so powerful they burned stars themselves, yet even that had not ended the darkness. The council listened in horror. Their translators repeated the words, but many could not accept them. If such a war had happened, where were the records? Why did no ruins, no stories, no evidence remain? The aliens accused the humans of lies. The first man turned his gaze on them. His eyes were cold, filled with memory, not anger. "There are no records," he said, "because the enemy erases them. It is not only flesh it consumes. It takes history. It takes memory. It takes truth." Entire races were lost, not just their bodies but their names. That is what you face now. His words shook the chamber. For the first time, the council felt the true depth of what was happening. This was not a new war. It was an old one, repeating itself. The aliens demanded to know why the humans had disappeared. If they had fought this war before, why had they left the galaxy to face it alone? The humans exchanged looks. Then the woman answered. "We survived, but survival was not enough. Every weapon we built, every fleet we sent, it was never enough to end it. So we chose another path. We chose to wait. To hide ourselves in the cold of sleep. To awaken when the cycle began again. To finish what we could not finish before." Her words spread across the chamber like fire. Some aliens felt relief. These humans had answers, strategies, knowledge. Others felt fear. If the humans had failed before, what hope was there now? And if they had such power, what would they do once the war was over? The younger man stepped forward. His voice was sharp and steady. "You fear us," he said. "That is good. You should. But understand this. We did not come back to rule you. We came back to fight what you cannot. Your fleets will fail, your colonies will burn, your children will vanish. We know this because it has happened before. If you wish to survive, you will listen. If not, then you will fall like the others. Silence filled the hall. The council members shifted uneasily. None dared to answer. The humans stood together, their weak bodies still recovering, but their presence was stronger than any weapon in the chamber. They did not need to shout or threaten. Their eyes alone carried the weight of countless lost battles. The first man finally spoke again. "There is no choice," he said. "The war has already begun. The darkness is moving faster than you think. Soon, your fleets will vanish not in days but in hours. The silence will spread until nothing remains. We are here because it must end now. This time, there can be no survival. Only victory." The words hung in the air like stone. The aliens realized then that the humans were not saviors. They were not allies. They were something far older. They were survivors of a forgotten war, awakened not to save the galaxy, but to finish it. The council session ended in chaos. Some leaders demanded the humans be trusted, others demanded they be destroyed. But in the quiet corners of the chamber, a truth had already settled into their hearts. The humans were not asking for trust. They were preparing for war. The decision was made faster than the council expected. Reports arrived of another colony gone dark. No signals, no survivors, only silence spreading through the system. The aliens panicked, but the humans did not. They studied the star maps with steady eyes, tracing the path of destruction as if they had seen it all before. The first man, who now seemed to be their leader, pointed at the edge of the council's territory. His voice was calm, almost too calm for the situation. "They are testing you," he said. "Pushing, probing, seeing how you react. That is how it always begins. If you continue to send your fleets alone, they will all be taken. You cannot fight the dark with numbers. You must fight it with purpose." The council hesitated. Their fleets were already weakened, their commanders already shaken. Trusting these strange humans felt dangerous. Yet the silence of the colonies gave them no choice. At last, they agreed. The next fleet would not fly alone. The humans would lead them. Preparations began at once. The aliens brought the humans aboard their warships. The sight of them walking through the vast hangars caused whispers among the crews. They looked fragile compared to the towering soldiers of other races, yet their eyes carried a weight that silenced every doubt. They moved with precision, studying every detail, asking questions that no one else had thought to ask. When the fleet jumped to the system on the edge of the dark, tension filled every ship. The stars seemed colder there. The silence pressed against the hulls like an invisible hand. For long moments, nothing happened. The crews whispered that perhaps the humans were wrong. Perhaps there was nothing here. Then the void tore open. Dark shapes slid out of the black, not ships, not creatures, but something in between. Their forms shifted and bent like shadows wrapped in steel. No signals came from them. No light burned on their hulls. They moved silently, but their numbers grew by the second. Panic rose in the fleet, but the humans did not panic. The leader stood on the command bridge and gave orders with a steady hand. "Hold formation. Do not chase them. They want you scattered. They want you blind." The alien captains hesitated, but obeyed. The humans watched the shadow fleet move, their patterns almost invisible to the untrained eye. Then the woman with dark eyes gave the next order. "Fire only where I mark." She spoke coordinates, and the fleet unleashed its weapons. Explosions lit the void, striking the shadows directly where they were weakest. For the first time in years, the enemy reeled back. The aliens gasped in disbelief. Their weapons had never worked this well before. But the humans did not celebrate. "Do not stop," the leader commanded. "They will adapt. They always adapt." He was right. Within minutes, the shadow fleet shifted its movements, changing shape, twisting into new forms. Weapons that had once worked now passed through empty space. Alien captains shouted in fear, but the humans gave new orders just as quickly. "Rotate fire. Use their momentum. Force them into crossfire." The battle raged across the system. Where the aliens had always fought with numbers, the humans fought with precision. Every order was sharp, every strike chosen, every sacrifice calculated. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. For the first time, the darkness was pushed back. On one ship, a young alien officer stared at the humans in awe. "How do you know this?" he whispered. The human beside him did not look away from the battle. "Because we have fought them for centuries," he said quietly. "And because we remember every mistake." The fleet held longer than anyone expected. Dozens of enemy shapes were destroyed, their twisted remains drifting lifeless through the void. The aliens cheered, but the humans did not join them. The leader stood at the viewport, his face unreadable. "This is only a test," he said softly. "They will return stronger. They always return stronger." And he was right again. Just as the fleet began to believe victory was within reach, the darkness shifted. A new form emerged, larger than the rest, a shape so vast it blocked out the stars behind it. Its presence pressed into the minds of every crew, filling them with terror. Ships faltered. Captains froze. The humans alone did not waver. The woman with dark eyes whispered words no alien could understand, words from a language long dead. Then she turned to the fleet. "Fall back. Now. You are not ready for this." The aliens hesitated. Retreat felt like defeat. But the humans gave no choice. They ordered the fleet to withdraw, covering the retreat with precise strikes that slowed the shadows. Many ships were lost, but more survived than in any battle before. When the fleet returned to council space, the aliens were both relieved and shaken. They had survived longer than ever before, and they had even destroyed some of the enemy. But they had also seen something new, something larger, something beyond their understanding. The humans gathered in silence. Their leader finally spoke. "This was only the beginning," he said. "The real war has not yet started." The chamber grew cold. For the first time, the aliens understood that the humans were not simply allies. They were commanders in a war far older and far greater than anyone had imagined. And the darkness was only just awakening. The council chamber was restless. The fleets had returned shaken but alive, and that alone was considered a miracle. Never before had the enemy been pushed back. Never before had so many ships survived an encounter with the darkness. Yet the council was not celebrating. Instead, fear grew stronger. They had seen something vast on the battlefield, a shape that dwarfed their warships, and they knew it was only a taste of what was coming. The humans stood before them, silent as the arguments raged. Some council members praised them as saviors, the only reason the fleet had returned. Others accused them of leading everyone into greater danger, claiming that their knowledge had drawn the enemy out. The chamber filled with anger until finally, the first man raised his hand. His voice cut through the chaos. "You cannot win this war as you are," he said. "Your fleets are strong but scattered. Your weapons are powerful but blind. Against the darkness, you will always be reacting, never striking. You will always be late. And late means dead." The aliens demanded to know what other choice they had. The humans exchanged glances. The woman with dark eyes stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but the weight in her words silenced the chamber. "There is something," she said. "A weapon we built long ago. A weapon hidden where no one could find it. It was meant to end the darkness forever." The council erupted. A hidden weapon. Why had this never been revealed before? Why had the humans kept it from the galaxy? The younger man answered, his voice sharp. "Because it is too dangerous. Even for us. It does not simply destroy the enemy. It destroys everything in its path. Planets. Stars. Systems. We buried it because victory at that price would mean nothing." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. The humans had just admitted to building something that could erase entire star systems. The council members shifted nervously, glancing at each other with suspicion. Some whispered that these beings were more dangerous than the enemy itself. Others argued that if such a weapon existed, it was the only hope they had. The first man did not look away. His eyes moved slowly across the alien leaders. "You asked for answers," he said. "Now you have them. The choice is yours. Keep fighting blind and lose everything, or trust us and unleash what was never meant to be used again." The debate grew fierce. Some leaders shouted that the humans were lying, that no such weapon could exist. Others demanded its location immediately. But the humans refused to reveal it so easily. The woman said only this: "It is buried deep, hidden in the ruins of a dead system, locked away so tightly that even we cannot reach it without time. And time is what we do not have." The chamber grew heavy with silence again. At last, one alien leader asked the question that weighed on every mind. "If we use this weapon, what will remain of the galaxy?" The humans gave no comfort. The younger man's reply was simple: "That depends on who controls it." The council froze. They realized then that this weapon was not just a hope against the darkness. It was a threat as well. If the humans controlled it, what would stop them from ruling the galaxy when the war was done? Doubt and fear spread quickly. Trust was already fragile, and now it cracked even further. Some demanded the humans be imprisoned, claiming they could not be allowed to walk freely while holding such a secret. Others begged for their guidance, desperate for any chance of survival. The humans stood in silence, watching the council argue, their faces unreadable. Finally, the woman spoke again. "We are not here to rule you. We are here to finish what we began. You may not trust us. You may even fear us. But know this: the enemy will not wait for your decision. While you argue, it spreads. While you doubt, it consumes. Soon, it will not matter what choice you make." Her words chilled the chamber. Even those who distrusted the humans could not deny the truth. The enemy was moving faster each day. If they did nothing, the galaxy would fall before the weapon was ever reached. The council session ended with no agreement. Fear and division grew thicker than ever. But in the shadows of the station, away from the arguing voices, the humans met in secret. Their leader spoke quietly to the others. "They will never trust us," he said. "Not until the enemy forces them to. We cannot wait for their decision. We must go to the weapon ourselves." The others nodded. They had known this moment would come. The woman's voice was steady as she answered: "Then it is time. We awaken the rest." The group grew silent. The meaning of her words hung heavy in the air. The council thought only a handful of humans had been placed in cryostasis. They did not know the truth. There were more. Many more. Scattered across forgotten systems, hidden in stations and ruins, waiting for the signal. And now, that time had come. The humans turned their gaze toward the stars. They had survived one war. Now they would end the next. The galaxy trembled. More colonies fell silent each day. The council met again and again, but every meeting ended the same, with fear, with arguments, with no answers. Trust was breaking. The fleets were broken. And still, the darkness spread. In secret chambers, far from the council, the humans gathered. Their bodies were stronger now, their movements sharper. The weakness from cryo-sleep had faded, and what remained was something the galaxy had never seen before: soldiers with purpose, carrying memories of wars older than the stars around them. The leader stood before a star map. His hand hovered over systems scattered across the edges of known space. His voice was low but steady. "They believe only a few of us survived. They do not know the truth. They do not know how many still sleep." The others nodded. The woman with dark eyes stepped forward, her gaze locked on the map. "It is time," she said. "We cannot fight this war as we are. The enemy will grow stronger, and the council will keep doubting. But if we awaken the rest, we will be ready." The younger man hesitated. "And if they fear us even more?" Her reply was calm. "They already fear us. But when the shadows come for them, fear will no longer matter. They will need us, whether they admit it or not." Far from the council's eyes, the humans sent out signals. Ancient codes spread across the void, bouncing between hidden beacons left long ago. For centuries those signals had been silent. Now they came alive, carrying one message to forgotten stations and ruined worlds: awaken. In the cold depths of abandoned systems, machines stirred. Dust fell from ceilings as ancient consoles lit up. Cryopods hissed and opened. Men and women stepped into the darkness, confused at first, then steady as memories returned. Across dozens of hidden places, the same scene repeated. The humans were rising again. Back on the council station, panic spread when ships reported strange energy spikes in multiple systems. Some feared it was the enemy. Others thought it was the end of everything. But when the first transmission came through, their fear turned to shock. It was not the enemy. It was more humans. Thousands of them. The council chamber shook with arguments louder than ever. Some demanded the new awakenings be stopped, claiming this army of humans was a greater danger than the darkness itself. Others shouted that without them, the galaxy had no chance of survival. While they argued, the humans did not wait. They moved with speed and certainty, gathering their own across the stars. Old fleets, hidden for centuries, were activated. Weapons far beyond the Council's imagination came to life. Ships of black steel, marked with forgotten symbols, rose from silent hangars and joined the stars once more. The alien leaders watched in fear and awe. For centuries they had believed themselves the rulers of the galaxy, yet now they saw the truth. Humanity had been here long before them, and humanity had never left. They had only been sleeping, waiting for this war to return. The first man addressed the council one last time. His voice was calm, but the power in it left no room for doubt. You wanted answers. You wanted saviors. But we are not your saviors. We are what stands between you and the dark. We did not come back for power, or for glory. We came back because this is our war. It always was. And it must end with us. The chamber fell into silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, some leaders lowered their heads in respect. Others turned away in fear. None could deny the truth. The humans were no longer a secret. They were no longer a myth. They were awake, and they were preparing for war. In the dark beyond the stars, the enemy moved. The vast shape that had frightened the fleet was not alone. More of them stirred in the void, countless shadows gathering, their presence pressing like a storm across the galaxy. The war to come would be greater than any battle before. The humans stood ready. Their fleets spread out like silent wolves among the stars, their soldiers unbroken, their eyes filled with the memory of every sacrifice they had ever made. The galaxy held its breath, torn between fear of the humans and fear of the darkness. The leader's final words echoed across the council chamber, words that would be remembered for centuries. No one had answers, until we awoke. And now, the galaxy will learn the truth. This is the last war. And it ends with us. The chamber lights dimmed. The council members sat frozen, their futures uncertain. Outside the station, in the endless night, new signals flickered from human ships. More pods were still opening. More soldiers were still waking. And somewhere deep in the void, the enemy stirred, sensing its old rivals had returned. The cycle had begun again. But this time, humanity was not here to survive. This time, they were here to win.